Like, if you're not going to be a homer today, what the hell, man? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Right?
I mean, listen, this is a historic Monday. You go 9-1 in this league. That is just absolutely amazing. As everybody knows, we become only the third team that's ever done that after the 1-5 starts. And I don't think that the national people get it. I think they're starting to get it. This is a real good Colts football team. I mean, this is a real good football team. I've been saying it for quite a while here. I've been saying it since the first Tennessee game, because I thought at that point our defense went from a containing, hard-playing, good defense to a defense that could make the difference. Throw that in with an offense that we know can. We have two really good kickers. I mean, we got a long field goal when we needed it. Sanchez had another great punt when we needed it, dropping them inside the 5. We have very few liabilities at this point. And, once you get in the dance here, you can clean the slate. It's a run for the roses now. And it really doesn't matter who or where anymore. What really matters now is who's the healthiest and who's the hottest. And we're pretty healthy, especially if we get Kelly back in there. Hopefully we can keep Hilton going. I know they're kind of keeping him together with baling wire. But, we may be the healthiest and the hottest going in.
Coach, you got to give respect. I mean, you're a longtime football coach. You've seen guys come and go. You've seen guys play, not play. But a word about T.Y. Hilton. A year ago, articles about his lack of leadership, really his lack of give a rat's ass, if you want to know the truth. But let's talk about this for just a second. The difference that he has, I don't know, probably made for himself and his career, no?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I don't think anybody has gained respect. Now, I never have been a derater of him like a lot of people. I've always felt that there were times that he disappeared in games because people took him away. And I think he kind of was overly criticized at times. What he looks to me like now, though, he stepped up and he's been, he has become a leader in there. Not a lot of that playing around, that immaturity that he had for a while. And he's really playing hard, and he's getting in there, and he's really playing tough. I also think that, he has really benefited now from an offensive system and an offensive coaching staff that really knows how to use people. I mean, in this year, he has been in more places, in more spots. They have created more matchups for him, kept the double coverage off him, and I think that's a credit to Frank and Sirianni as well. But I think you have to have nothing but respect for T.Y., especially the last couple of weeks when he's hurt and when he can hardly practice and he's going out there playing in games. And he's so important to us, Dan. I mean, there ain't any question about it. When we get here against the Texans, he's the Texan killer. I mean, they have never, and I've been critical of them, they have never figured out a way, to take him away. I've always been surprised. I come out of every game and I shake my head. How did you do that? Jonathan Joseph has always just played well against other teams. He's always rated in the top 15 in the league, and yet he's never been able to post up against T.Y. I just think when T.Y. is there, he makes everything else better. I think basically, you're always sitting there on defense worrying about him. If you strip it from inside out or you strip it from top down, you give Ebron the better matchup now. You get the running game going a little bit better. I just think that he, in some ways, is so important to us because I think a lot of it pivots around how people play him.
All right. Let me jump backwards just a second from players to coaches. I said this earlier, and I'm curious your thought on it, Coach. Rick Venturi, nice enough to join us, presented by District Tap. 60 beers on tap, which I may go try every one after this show because I'm not feeling great. And then, damn good food. Coach, let me go this route with you. Frank Reich, I think, personally, you can argue he should have gone for it, shouldn't have gone for it, whatever you want to do. But he's, number one, been who he said he was going to be. He was going to be aggressive. Number two, He's been very daring. And number 3, there really isn't a time where you can say, man, these guys are dumb. And he's improved. Their staff has made players better. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. I think you see the development everywhere on this team. You see it on offense. You see it on defense. I think the first thing that Frank brought in is presence and honesty and credibility with the players. I think he walks to the front of the room, and it was there from day one. He also, and this is something that I looked for, and I was so happy that we ended up getting it. And it's not only come to my expectations, it's come beyond. But, that I think that I don't know that anybody has done a better job in this league this year utilizing his assets, his, protecting his liabilities, attacking others' liabilities, play in, play out, game in, game out. I think there was a time around here where we always doubted whether or not that we would be the best coached team on the field. I don't think we doubt that now, and I also think that's one of the big reasons that we have a chance to make noise here, because I think we're well coached. Now, we're coached differently on both sides of the ball. There's a difference in how we do it. But in both cases, we're very effective. And I think the other thing that you bring up there, that you mentioned in passing, and you and I have always wondered about that, and we've always worried, and we've always said, who gets better?
Right.
But this team, if you look at it player for player on both sides of the ball, it's hard to find anybody that isn't getting better. I mean, honestly, I don't think that I have ever, and I'm going to say this, I've never enjoyed watching offensive line play like I have this year. It's almost unbelievable that I look forward to watching the various schemes we use, to watch those guys run. And I thought our 2 rookies, and of course they're high draft picks, but I thought 56, and he's played really good all year, but I thought he was tremendous yesterday. I mean, he has improved, believe it or not, even though he came multi-talented. But he has learned to keep that weight down all the time. He used to lunge a little bit when he first got here because he, was able in college just to get by with strength. But if you watch that platform yesterday, I mean, he was down. He was on it. He was getting to the second level. When he pulls, he's so athletic. And the guy that just played, I thought, really good was Smith on the right side. There's a play I want everybody to look at. On that, on that quick screen to Hilton that he goes about 35.
Yep.
Just hit him. Watch Smitty on that play. Smitty is throwing a block. It's 20 yards downfield. I mean, that big dude is running and throwing down there. So, I mean, those 2 rookies just alone, the improvement has been overwhelming. Another guy that we don't talk about a lot, and I think you can appreciate, Ali Cox has really improved. I mean, he is now the starting tight end. He's not, he's not quite the physical guy that Doyle is, but he is outstanding. He's getting better every week. He's positioning people with that big body. Now they've expanded his role. At one time it was just kind of get on people on the edge. This week he ran inside whams on the nose. He ran inside whams on the tackle. And there's a guy that has really literally no football background. And, you expect that because of the basketball background that the receiving part of it would come to him pretty fast, because we're talking about spatial stuff that relates to basketball. But when you're talking about blocking on the edge on defensive ends and coming back in and tackles, now that's a brave new world. And so you see guys like that. Let's just look at the difference. Look at the difference in Mac from 17 to 18. I mean, Mac came in here with talent out of South Florida. I mean, he was a kid that, could
I
really
remember you loved him.
I loved him.
Yeah,
I loved him from day one. When Chris took him on the 4th round, I thought, and it's proven to be a terrific pick. But, when he got here, he was a bounce and go guy. He was, it was kind of he was like that home run hitter that we watch in baseball. He either hit the home run or he whiffed. He got a 4-yard loss or 25-yard gain. And what this staff has gotten him to do, I give Rathman credit on this, is that kid is so much different north and south. I mean, he's hammering it now. I mean, he gets that ball north and south. The other thing, he's not perfect, but he had another really good blitz pickup yesterday. I mean, and these are things that you look for on the improvement areas. Our two kids, Hines and Wilkins, contribute. You know, those kids are rookies. Even some of those receivers that we kind of got in there late, like Pasco and Inman, are, you know, they're kind of part of it. You know, they even get a kid, the guy from Cincinnati, Hewitt. They actually get him to do some blocking in there. So I don't think there's any question about it. And then when you go on the defensive side of the ball, you know, you see so much improvement from, you know, week one to now to, you know, to so forth and so on, that it's even hard to mask. I mean, you know, Kenny Moore just keeps changing games. I mean, nobody ever talks about him.
Man, is he good.
All he ever does, I mean, he has single-handedly, I won't say won the game, but he has single-handedly saved two games, because yesterday, you know, yesterday's funny. When I watch the tape, it's even more evident. It's a game that we totally dominated, but in another way, we let them off the hook. We dominated a game and yet made it interesting. That was the funny. And when it was 24-17, it almost felt like they had a little bit of, not really momentum. You're not going to have momentum when Blaine Gabbard's your quarterback, but you know, they felt like, you know, they're making a couple first downs here. You know, they just got a 2-play touchdown, you know, and it's 24-17, and then, you know, he gift wraps it, but there's Kenny again. Kenny makes the big play against Jacksonville, or we go down that day in the fourth quarter, that strip that he makes. So, I mean, you know, guys like that. You see Quincy coming along. I thought Hooker yesterday had the first front-up tackle in that first series when he comes up and he puts it on somebody that I've seen since I've been here. So, you know, there's no question about how those guys are getting better and better and better. And that's why I just think, you know, we right now are a tough out, because you look at us, you know, we can score a ton of points. I mean, we were surgical, and then, you know, we had a lull. Andrew made maybe the silliest play of his career. And then we give up 3 before the half. Then they get that 2-play scoring drive. It's a freak show. We have those fumble punts, this, that. The second quarter and into the third quarter is like a doggone freak show, you know. But we find a way to come back and, you know, get 400 and some yards. And at the end of the day, we have the ball for 40 minutes, and our defense just doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns. It just doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns. Yesterday, old Blaine and company, you know, they were 1 for 10 on third and fourth down. You know, so I mean, so you're stopping them, you're holding on to the ball, and like I said, you know, in some respects, the tape, we totally dominate the tape. It's really amazing. It shouldn't have even been 24-7 or 17. It shouldn't have been.
When you looked at Blake Bortles coming in, you know, last week I think you said, you know, he can do some things in the pocket, blah, 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 blah. But when you were texting me last night, you could just tell, like, this wasn't going to happen for Blake Bortles.
No, it wasn't going to happen. You know, you go back, and he is what he is. You know, he's the guy that is, you know, we have been fortunate, in my holy trinity of quarterbacks this year is Derek Anderson, Cody Kessler, and now the guy that's the head of the triangle will be Blake Bortles. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And we have been fortunate. I mean, we have only played one quarterback in the top 15 QBR in the last 10 weeks. So, you know, now that's fixing to change here going forward. You're gonna see nothing but guys that can play right there. But he just, you know, he's a guy that has one more touchdown than he has interception. This guy has 47 career interceptions, 72% lifetime quarterback rating, and a 55% completion average. So, you know, like you said, you never felt like you were going to lose that game last night. You felt like that you were making it interesting, but that you would eventually get in control of it, like we did get in control of it. You know, and I talked all week to you. They can talk about Henry. They can talk about that running game. It is not going to happen with us. They dented us for a couple. You know, they dented us. But at the end of the day, you get 93 yards. You know, all that stuff about he carries it 15 times, they win. Well, yesterday he carried 6 times, they didn't win, because you're just not going to win that way. You have to be quarterback driven. to win at a high level. There's just no way. There's no other way around it. And so we're in good shape there. And now we go to Texas. It's a little bit different. Now I think we still match up very good against the Texans, but I will say this is that the Texans, though, have more guys that can affect the game. After Tennessee lost Casey and Ryans, and the quarterback in terms of his legs, they're really pretty. But the Texans have some guys that can make a difference, and that quarterback is insane sometimes. He's just insane. I can't believe it.
Well, let's talk about this because I know you've watched. Rick Venturi joins us. Difference between the first Colts-Texans game and the second Colts-Texans game?
Well, first of all, we were a lot better in the second one in several areas. I think the biggest area that we were better in is that we did a really good job on Hopkins. Okay,
Yep.
When you look at the Texans, Dan, on offense, they've got a good running game. There's no question about it. Now the quarterback adds a lot to it. The statistic is a little bit distorted because the quarterback adds 550 yards to the total offense. So that's and it just seemed like last week, like they said, hey, we're gonna win this game and win this division, and the hell with it. I mean, they ran him on. It looked like a college game. I'm almost shocked at how many design runs he ran last week, to be honest with you. But where you really have to stop, the two things you really have to stop. We will stop the running game. I say that every week, and we do stop it because our system is set up to stop that running game on first down. And our guys penetrate up in there. Like I said, they dented us a couple times. If you're going to run against us, you're better off tossing it and get to the edge, because if you think you're going to run inside there, it's not going to happen. But the two guys that are just dynamic football players, that are ambient football players, are Hopkins and Deshaun Watson. And those are the guys that you have to keep under control. Hopkins can go off at any time. You have to have nuance. We did a good job. We didn't do a good job in the first game against him at all. Second game, we did a really good job. I think he got 34 yards, and that was critical in winning. I mean, when he doesn't have a really good day, they usually don't play very well. And then I think you have to do a great job, and we did at times and we didn't at times. And it's very difficult because Watson is absolutely crazy with the ball. I mean, he is a kid that has, he's a little bit Mike Vick. He's a little bit Russell Wilson. And the guy that the more I watch him, and I know some fans are too young to even know, but he's like a black Fran Tarkenton, man. I'm telling you, this guy can get out of trouble. He can get outside, inside, almost, escape artist like I've never seen. But the good thing about him from their standpoint is when he does get out, he never gets out of control. He is always looking to beat you downfield. And so it's really important. If you remember the last touchdown where they pull close, kind of says it all. That last touchdown where they pull close in the second game, to me, says it all. Do not let him on the edge. Okay, if you let him on the edge, you're flirting with disaster, because now what happens is he's out there and you have to hold the coverage. And the one time, if you remember, that they got Hopkins loose is when he got in there in that fourth quarter. He got on that edge and he started stretching it, and we didn't what I call plaster on Hopkins, and he threw that touchdown pass to get him within one score. And so, I think that those are critical elements. I think the biggest thing, if I look at what teams have done to us successfully over the year, which we know one another real well, there's no secrets going into this one. We have to do it. Here's what I think we have to really improve on this week going into Texas defensively. We have to get a lot better on bootleg passing. Okay, this is, we struggle. We even struggle with it if Gabbert isn't so inaccurate. He hits two or three, and it looks a little bit different. You saw Eli Manning really take us to school on those bootleg passes 2 weeks ago. This is what this kid specializes in. You could put bootleg pass, and you could put it in Google and put his picture in there, to be honest with you. So we have to do a really good job both in the containment of him and in the coverage, those flats, those tight ends coming across. That's got to be number one. Number 2 is play action. He does a really good job of faking the run. He really fakes it up in there. And, you've seen those tight ends. Even Pruitt got one in behind us last week. Those kinds of things. And then I think the biggest thing is you have to have a blitz and a rush plan. In other words, when you're rushing normally and when you're blitzing, you have to have a plan that, to me, contains and compresses him in the pocket. He may scramble inside, and usually when he does, he runs there. Usually when he scrambles inside, he takes off and goes. That's one issue. But what I don't like, Dan, is when he gets to the edge. If you remember, I was saying that to you all the time. I don't like him on the edge, because then what happens is your coverage gets distorted, and you can only hold it so long. So, you got to have a really good rush plan. Now, on the other side of it, and this is what I said about Tennessee last week, I say it more so about these guys, is these guys cannot play from disadvantage, although Watson would be different. Watson is different. You can never relax on him like a Gabbard. But their offensive line is horrific if they really have to protect the passer in the drop-back game. If it isn't, they are 32nd in the league, in sacks, 32nd, 3.9 sacks a game with the most elusive quarterback in the league. So you figure that one out. I mean, you can get after him. There isn't any question about it. But you just have to be smart. You don't want to ever take away the aggressiveness, but you have to have a lot of discipline against this guy.
All right, we come back. We're going to continue to talk with the great Rick Venturi, presented by the District Tap on the Four Winds Lakeside Inn and Marina Hotline. It is a Colts homer day, people. We are celebrating the Colts 9 out of 10, third team ever to overcome a 1-5 start to get into the playoffs. What the hell? If we're not going to be homers today, when are we going to be? Rick Venturi back with us when we come back. It's a Colts homer day today. If you can't be a homer today, I don't know what the hell to tell you. Right now, I think there's 8 coaches out of jobs in the NFL, and we're going to get into that in a minute with the coach. But first, I want to go back to something last night and something you said earlier, Rick, and that is you haven't enjoyed line play like this. Let me go to one specific thing that I don't know if it's overlooked. I don't know if it's not. You've talked about it. I've talked about it, but maybe fans don't recognize it. 1-4 without Costanzo, 9-2 with Costanzo. Him coming back seemed to be a really good thing.
No, there's no doubt about it. That's one of the key turnarounds on offense, and that's not to take anything. You've seen me praise Nelson. Nelson is super. I thought Smitty was great, but this team turned back around when all those guys came back. The critical guys were Hilton and Doyle at the time. Remember, Mack was out also, and then Costanzo. I consider Costanzo, with the exception of our quarterback, one of our 4 most critical guys on the team: Hilton, Ebron, Mack, and Costanzo. If somebody asks me what are my 4, and I'm not saying that necessarily they're the 4 best players. Nelson may be the best player on the team. That's not what I'm saying. But they are in positions that make the difference. That left tackle makes the difference. And, basically when you look at who he plays against week after week, and for the most part, that position, that guy over there has disappeared. We have actually crunched people on the running game to our left behind him and Nelson. Both of them are really athletic, so you can pull either one. You can block down and pull Nelson. You can crack and pull Costanzo, and you can pull both tackles. We run plays that teams don't ever think about pulling tackles, and we pull tackles around in the hole, which tells you a little bit about their athleticism. And I think the point you just made is well taken. I don't think there's any coincidence to that record with our left tackle in the game and without him, because before that, what Frank was doing, and I was giving Frank credit for just surviving, absolutely surviving, and he was still getting about 25 points a game. But we were doing it with quick rhythm because he had the intelligence and the smarts and the adaptation ability to say, we can't hold the protection with the guys we're playing with, so we got to get it out. But once Costanzo came back into the game and that left flank was taken care of, then all of a sudden now we can begin to go more play action, which now stresses you downfield, stresses you in behind. But if you can't hold the protection, none of that really matters. People don't even look at that, and yet it starts with protection. So, I think you're right on your thinking there. I think he had tremendous impact on us coming back. The other thing, we play a hell of a lot better when Mac is in there.
A hell of a lot better.
I mean those other kids are good role players. They really are. I mean, Wilkins comes in fresh and gives you some good stuff. I think he's doing a great job of using Hines. I mean, that 4th and 1, he got Hines isolated on Brown outside by formation. It was one-on-one, and you could run 10 of those, and you know how many Brown will stop? 0. Okay?
Right.
That's why it wasn't a daring call on 4th and 1. He knew. He got in that formation and got that line back. We'll do the same thing. If we can get McKinney out of the box, he'll never cover Hines, and I think they're doing a really good job. Hines is kind of a silent killer inside, without tremendous numbers. But him and Ebron, you got Hilton outside, and then Ebron and Hines inside are very, very difficult matches if you're a defensive coordinator.
Coach, let me go to a couple things. Number one, why does that play? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but you know what? You know how it goes in radio. People don't listen to the entire segment. Right. But why does that play where Luck steps back, fires the ball to his right, gets the ball to Hilton, and then he runs for 35 yards? That play works. And number one, the play works, and you're getting the ball to playmaker. But number two, I've always thought this, okay, Coach? I've always thought that one of the signs of a well-coached team in modern football, not back in the day football, modern football, is wide receivers being able to block down the field. Shows me that a coaching staff is on it.
Well, you're right, and we have that now, and that's there is an advantage now, to playing with guys like Pascal and Inman who are fighting for their life. They're anything but prima donnas. Plus, when we run a quick screen, the other thing that is really important, and I mentioned it, and I'll re-mention it here, is on that play, our right tackle, Smitty the rookie, he was throwing a block 20 yards downfield.
Right.
The other thing, now there's two ways that those plays happen. That was truly a quick screen, and that was truly a quick screen. And so our offensive line, which is so athletic, I watch these offensive lines like the Texans compared to us. It isn't even close. Tennessee compared to, it's not even close. I mean, we get out there and run. I mean, our guys get out there and run, get in front of stuff, and so we're a very good screen team now, and we're a very good toss-crack team because our line can run. Now, the other thing that Frank does, though, that, happens and you don't notice it as much is some of those bubbles. That one wasn't. That was truly a quick screen. But some of those bubble screens out there are literally RPOs. In other words, they have the run call. You see that on Saturdays all the time. They have the run call. The line is blocking run front side, pass protection backside. That's how they teach it. And then it's up to Andrew, whatever he sees. If he sees numbers light outside, then he can throw that bubble. That's where Rodgers is catching a lot of balls now. If the numbers if the numbers aren't good inside, then he's giving the ball to Max. So you're kind of, it's kind of like old check with me, except you're doing it after the snap, and that's something that we stole from the college game, to be honest with you, and it's really worked. But I think you're right about one thing. Is our receivers and tight ends. None of them are divas. They're all guys that are fighting, and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. So they're going to get out. They're going to block when they have to, and do not discount the athleticism of our offensive line, particularly at tackle. Our two tackles can get out and run like you just don't see that.
Coach, let me go to something else. First game, I thought here against the Texans, I thought Jadeveon Clowney dominated the game.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a bunch of penalties, jumping off sides. He did the same thing in the second game. Colts handled him in the second game. Why?
Well, the thing about it is, I think we did a better job on him on the inside. Remember what I told you in the getting ready for him in that second game? I said if basically when Jadeveon Clowney lines up off the ball and starts walking around, we should have a siren go off in the dome there to make sure that he doesn't get us inside. Now, Jadeveon is a good edge rusher, But really where he's devastating is when he's moving around inside. And then third down, they will move him in there. And on early downs, they'll stack him up in there and let him hit that A gap really quick. And so, man, you cannot go to sleep on him. He is, Watt has all the sacks. Watt has 16 sacks. But they're almost always, almost all of them now are coming from our right side. They're not moving him around nearly as much as they used to, but he's devastating off that edge. But Clowney is with 9 sacks. But what you don't count with Clowney is all the tackles for losses he gets. I mean, and you're right about that in that first game. In that first game in the overtime, he changed the complexion of the game. Now, he's got a little nuts in him. I mean, he has the big hit, although that's one of those bang bang plays anymore. I don't know. I mean, he's going in to hit the quarterback, but in a way, he cost him the Philadelphia game with the head to the helmet of Foles. And yet, if you look at the play, it scares you to death because he comes around on that Tex game, and I mean, it looks like, oh man, that looks like a freight train coming out of Chicago there around the side there. So, yeah, you got to handle him and Watt. There isn't any question about that. And I think Frank, what he did a good job in that second game is he had a much better feel for them. And what he did is he mixed basically 3 things there on early downs. He did a lot of quick rhythm, and when he did quick rhythm, he spread them out, and they continue to play off. If I were playing the Colts, I would get up and press every down, every player, and I'd have my free safety leaned on top of Hilton and have the 8th guy in the box and say, okay, guys, you beat me. You play off against us, and you play off against Hilton. You're just asking for it, and they continue to do it. They play that soft quarters or soft thirds back there, and they really, really give it up. So what Frank did in that last game was he did 3 different things early downs. He went quick rhythm from spread sets where he spread them all out, and he worked on them inside. He worked on, McKinney. He worked on those guys inside with Ebron and Hines and all the inside, even Hilton in the slot. Then he went max protection, to make sure that because if you're going to hold the ball at all, you got to get those 2 guys blocked, and don't count on one-on-one to do it. So he went max protection. And then he gashed them downfield with different stuff. He got in stacks and bunches because for some reason, they have a terrible time sorting out stacks and bunches. I will show that when I get my videos out later this week. I mean, they just have an inordinate amount of time. And then he nickel and dimed them with the run. He really did. He nickel and dimed them with the run. He banged at them. I think you can get to the edge on these guys, but the thing you got to do, you got to get there quick. Or you got to pinch it when you go to the right. By pinch it, I mean you got to get a double on Watt. You got to make sure that you double him and pound him. And when you can get outside on Clowney because he loves to come inside. But when you do it, you have to toss it and get it out there quick because if you run anything that takes a little bit of time to get there, he'll swipe underneath you and he'll be up in that backfield so fast your head will swim. So, you got to be able to toss it where you can just pin him and break his rib cage, as he goes in that swim move. I mean, that's what you tell him. Every time that guy swims and we're running that toss, you just break that rib cage right there, buddy.
Yeah,
make him pay for it. But and so I mean, everything you do is going to be along that line. You want to run on those corners and safeties. They play a lot of what we call quarters coverage. And where they have trouble, if you go 4 up against quarters, basically that eats up all 4 guys. So if you eat up the safety, let's say you go up and eat a honey badger with your tight end, then that's going to put Joseph one-on-one with Hilton. I mean, so you can do that. The other thing that really hurts them are what we call 4 beaters, which are scissors routes. In other words, you take the Z, you take Hilton down to the post, you take Ebron up, and he runs the corner, and they kind of get a natural rub there. And if you're playing quarters, you have to decide, are we going to zone that off or are we going to lock it off? It's kind of like a pick in basketball. Are we going to zone it? Oh, and I've seen them get screwed up over and over. We turned Reed around from a stack for a big play to Hilton. We got the ball to Ebron on a scissors that way. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get after these guys structurally. So, again, I do think we match up, but you got to understand that they have guys that if you don't take care of them, they have, as opposed to Tennessee, they have guys that can ruin the game.
Last segment, I want to go around the league a little bit with you, including the
Okay.
Bears, man. I had a chance to watch the Bears yesterday. I like the Bears, Coach. They remind me of 85. We'll talk about that. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the Bears, pretty good. We'll come back with the coach, Rick Venturi, next. All right, Coach Venturi and I have been talking about the Colts podcast. Will be up as soon as we're done here, 2 o'clock. Remember, the show only goes to 2:30 today. Pacers and Hawks. Pregame starts at 2:30. Then the game with Mark and Slick afterwards. And Colts Roundtable live tonight. Coach, 2 things that I noticed, and I sat on my fat ass and watched a lot of football yesterday. 2 things I noticed that I didn't want to notice, if you really want to know the truth. Like I say, nobody will ever compare, in my feeble little brain, to the 85 Bears defense. It was my favorite team to watch of all time. However, I don't know that they're there, but the Bears defense, really good. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't ever want to like the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry, I just don't. But I like something about this Dallas Cowboy team that I have not liked in a while, Coach. Tell me I'm wrong on both, or tell me I'm right on both, or let's talk first Bears.
Yeah, first Bears. I think, the thing about it is defense really, defense travels well in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And they're legit. I have a feeling about the 85 Bears. I don't think anybody's ever been like them. I coached against them, and I mean, you felt like you were in a microwave, man, when you played against them. I think this team is good. I can't put it on that level. That team changed the game. They changed the way football was played. And the Bears have enough weapons. The interesting thing is yesterday, in some ways, in a funny way, they picked their poison because they got the Vikings out of there, and now they got to play the Eagles. And that's a little scary to me because, the Eagles are still the world champion, and I mean, they come back and fought their way in, and now in some ways they're on house money. That's going to be a little tough one. Those are the kinds of games that are real tough in the wild card.
Those are the kind of games that are going to be a lot of fun because Foles, I don't know if Foles is an all-day quarterback, but I know this. He's damn good with that Eagles team late in the year.
Here's where Foles is really good. He's just an amazing phenomenon. When Foles comes in because of injuries, well, all of a sudden it's almost as if he doesn't play with any pressure, and he plays great.
Yeah.
Give him the job. I saw it in St. Louis. Give him the job and say you're the guy. It's not the same, Dan. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, and that's exactly where he's scary right now. And those guys have been there, and that front four is really, really good. So, wild card weekend, you got wild card weekend, and then you got Clemson and Alabama. It's like Clemson and Alabama and everybody else in the NCAA.
You could talk about expanding the playoffs. Who the hell are you expanding it to? I mean, honest to God. Right?
That's right. It's those 2 teams and everybody.
Yeah, it's like you should really shorten the playoffs. Just say, all right, you 2, Because let's be honest, Oklahoma fought like crazy, but they weren't going to win that game, and Notre Dame wasn't going to win that game from the time they threw the ball up.
Oh, no.
Right?
I mean, those 2 programs are just so good. They're so talented, and they're both well coached. They're coached totally differently, but they're both very well coached. But, I mean, all you got to do is look on the first day of the draft to know how good Clemson, Alabama is.
Yeah, every year.
Every year.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to get back to it before I let you go here. You mentioned defense travels in the playoffs in the NFL. Let me go through 2 teams, and you tell me, do they have enough defense? The Rams and the Chiefs.
I have not watched the Rams in detail, so I can't,
Okay.
Now, I spent this weekend, because I thought, a lot of things could happen. I spent this weekend watching the Chiefs and the Chargers. They were the 2 teams I really had not watched. I think the Chiefs have some elements that could make them really good. I don't think that they're great on defense by any stretch. But I will say this, when they get leads and they can turn Ford and Houston loose on the edge, I mean, they are really, really good. I mean, those 2 guys can rush the passer. They can really get after you. But, I don't think they're great. I mean, I look at the Chargers. The Chargers, who everybody thinks is really good, and they've given up like 7 sacks in 2 weeks. Their right side can't block anybody. I mean, I come back to the Colts. What are your big liabilities? In the past we've said, okay, if it really gets down to a game where we have to protect, you probably won't get it done. We'll possibly get out coached in this game, and our defense will not hold up in the fourth quarter, right? I mean, that's kind of, even when we were winning 12 games, we were saying that. And you're not saying that now. You're not. You just feel like that none of that. All of that is fine. Now don't get me wrong. I mean, there's things that. There's things that we have to be very aware of as we get in taller trees, particularly on defense, because we're going to play better offenses and better quarterbacks than we've been playing, and that's kind of critical. And speaking of Kansas City, I didn't. I hadn't watched him. I've watched him kind of like a fan, but that kid at quarterback is a monster.
God, is he good?
Oh my God!
Jeez.
Oh my God! I mean, I just kept taking plays off and going like, oh my God! Wow! Wow! This is unbelievable what he does.
Coach, I don't know. I mean, we make a big deal about him throwing the ball different angles and all that, but what I make a big deal about is him running full speed and firing the ball like 40, 50 yards downfield on a dime.
That's the difference. See, you'll see a lot of guys that are on the move and they throw the ball, and they'll throw the ball, but they're semi under control. You're exactly right about him. He is going 100 miles an hour. He makes a touchdown pass in one of the 2 games I watched. I think it was the San Diego game. And Dan, he is rolling to his left. I mean, he's flat ass outside the pocket. He's not rolling. He's escaping to his left, and he starts to throw. And he literally, it isn't a fake. He's going to throw it at the last minute. He pulls it back. He pulls the trigger and turns the shoulder and throws a bullet right over the middle. I'm like, you didn't just do that. It wasn't like one of those where you fake it and then throw it. He was going to throw it, and he held back and on a dead run, and that's scary. That's a little bit what's scary about Deshaun Watson too. I mean, that Deshaun Watson now he's a guy that could come in here and he could come in here and we could get all after him. But, man, I'm telling you what, that guy's talented. Woo.
Yeah, and is there a game plan for that? I mean, is it the old thing, keep him in the pocket, squelch the pocket, that kind of thing?
I think there is. I think, and I don't think you want to slow your team down. I mean, I don't think you want to say, okay, we're going to mush rush all day. I don't believe in that. I just think that this is the week that you say my rush has got to be disciplined, and I would be careful on defenses where I brought my end inside. Like Tex games and stuff like that. I mean, if he scrambles up inside, he's going to make some yardage rushing. But the way we play zone, we'll also come up and kill him. We'll make him pay for it. What I worry about and what I don't want to see happen is let him on the edge. The same way with Mahomes. You let those guys on the edge, and bad things happen to you.
Coach,
ironically, we're probably going to see those guys back to back.
I know, right? You go from seeing quarterbacks, let's be honest, can't really play.
No, terrible.
Right? To these guys.
Terrible. I mean, there's one we faced in the last 10 weeks. We faced one guy with a QBR higher than 20. Prescott is like 18, and that's Deshaun Watson. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And everybody else, quite frankly, in NFL parlance, stinks.
Stinks. So now, now the rest of the way, man, it's moving forward. But I do think that we do so many things well, and the one thing we really do, and that you have to give Eberflus the credit for it because he's a believer, and he sold it and he forced it. Is that one of the reasons we don't give up a lot of big plays is we swarm to that football. I mean, we run to that football. So there's not, there isn't very often where there's a lot of separation between players. And when you look at the National Football League, let me tell you this. There aren't guys making a lot of one-on-one tackles. They're making one-on-one tackles when the guy gets constricted, okay, when a guy gets forced to you. There's very few guys making real one-on-one tackles against good players. And that's where this defense, they do a great job of swarming and kind of keeping that ball in the cup.
Coach, I appreciate you, man. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for all the texts last night. It's great stuff, man.
Okay,
Thanks for the time today.
Here we go. We got a little short week, but it is fun, man. It's exhilarating.
Oh, it's the best. It is the absolute best. Appreciate you, boss.
All right, man.
That's the great Rick Venturi.